Hi, my name is Chris with Acton Creative, and this is A Handwoven Experience. In today's episode, we're titling it, Wait, I've Run Out of Yarn. Okay, friends, if you weave for any length of time, this will happen. I don't care how great of a planner you are, how wonderful of an organizer you claim to be, life will happen, and at some point, my friend, you'll run out of yarn, which is not the end of the world. It is just an opportunity. There are two major places that you can run out of yarn. The first one is in the warp, while you are measuring all your warp yarns, getting ready to dress the loom. The second is in your weft, as you're actually weaving your project. So in today's episode, I am going to bring you into those exact scenarios, and we're going to talk about our options, because there may be some things there that you can do that you hadn't thought of before. And my goal is that you do not panic when you run out of yarn. It's happened to me so many times. Now, let me be clear, I never claimed to be the world's best organized weaver. However, when it happens, and it will at some point, I don't want you to be overwrought. No, it's not the end of the world. It's just an opportunity for a little creative problem solving. So without further ado, why don't we kick things off by looking at what happens when you run out of yarn with your warp. So to do that, well, we need to take a little trip over to the warping board. So here we are at my warping board. Now your job here, friends, is to ignore all the cookbooks back there. I might have a slight problem. I don't want them to distract you, so stay on target. We're here for the warping board. So let's talk about when you run out of yarn at this part of the process. Now, this is the very first step. You are just entering into the entire process of weaving this project. So you have a lot of flexibility here at this stage. So if you find yourself suddenly with an empty tube or cone, let's talk about what your choices are. First of all, let's get out of the way. Of course you can buy more yarn. Of course you can. But that is going to take more time and more resources. And there are some other choices for you. So here is my first question I'll pose to you when you run out of yarn. Can you change the size? Can you make your project just a touch narrower? Are you going to know? Is anybody else going to know? Doesn't matter. You see, because we are just at the very beginning stage, we can, it can be short, 6 ends or whatever it is. Because I know you've probably gotten pretty close. So when you run out of yarn, it's not that you are short 5 inches. You're short like 5 ends. It's not very much. So ask yourself this, does it matter if I make it a touch narrower? Easy solution right there. Here is the second thing that I will pose to you. The second question I'll pose is, can you use one of your existing colors and shift things around a little bit? Here's the beautiful part of running out of yarn at this stage of the process, is that you can still move everything before it goes into the loom. We're nowhere near putting this into the loom, so you have flexibility to shift things around. Here's what I mean. My current project here has a whole series of, can you see all the colors? They're all kind of spring colors. So let's say I've run out of one of the colors. Okay, not ideal. All right, what can I do? Well, I have more of this apple green color. Can I either A, make those particular stripes bigger, B, insert another green stripe where the missing colors would be, or C, just kind of shift things around so that I still have the amount of ends that I want, but I am working with the materials that I already have. Ask yourself that one. I don't mind it, I should say, when I run out of yarn at this stage, because for me, I dress my loom from front to back. So I know that when I sit down to slay the reed next, I can shift things around. Is it even if I'm not doing exactly in order here at the warping board, which in a perfect world I would, but I can add extra things to the end and then put them in the right place at the reed. I don't mind that at all when I run out of yarn right here, because I still have time and space to kind of change the plan. Here is the last thing I would pose to you. The last question is that, can you bring in another color that will give you the ends you need and still work in the project and be kind of a nice little design element? Here's what I might do. For my project here, I've got a pink, a light blue, a pale green, a little bit of a navy. That's the color palette that I have here. But because I have run out of that light pink color, I need just a few ends somewhere. So what if I brought in just another color that'll work in this color palette really nicely, and I sprinkled it in just as like little design elements, little confetti throughout the entire project. That will then give me the ends that I need for the total width of the project, but give me a little something extra, a little sprinkle of something to help the project be actually even more interesting than I originally planned. So when you're at this stage, at the warping board, measuring your project, and you run out of yarn, ask yourself these three things. A, can I change the width of it? Is that okay to make it a little narrower? Is that the end of the world? Probably not. B, can I use more of one of the colors that I already have, shifting things around a little bit? And then C, can I bring in just one more color and add it into the mix? It may actually end up being better than what you thought. So this is the first place that you might run out of yarn. We have one other key spot where it's very likely that you will run out of yarn, and that is with the weft. So for that conversation, we're going to zip back to the loom. Okay, here we are back at the loom to discuss what happens when you run out of yarn with the weft. Now, here's the big difference I find when you run out of yarn with the weft is that you know it's coming. You see the cone, you see the cardboard under there, and you're like, oh, it's not gonna last me. I find that I'm more surprised when I'm working at the warping board measuring the project than I am when I'm actually weaving it. When I have to keep loading up the shuttle and I'm thinking, it's not gonna last me for another 12 inches. So that becomes one of the big differences when you run out of yarn at this stage versus the other stage. The thing is, at this stage, when you're actually already weaving the project, it is already set, is that you're a little more locked in to what the project is kind of designed as. So I would argue you don't have quite as much flexibility, but that doesn't mean you don't have any options. That doesn't mean you have to immediately get on the internet and order more yarn. No. You still have choices here. So here are the things that I would ask you when you run out of yarn at this stage of the process. Number one, can you make it shorter? Just like when we were at the warping board and I asked if you could make it narrower, can you make your project shorter? If the answer is yes, there you go. You're all set. Carry on. If it's no, then let's talk about some other things to consider. Here's the second thing. Can you use your existing colors, your existing yarns, to extend it to the length that you need? Here's what that might look like. So this is actually a weave along project from a while ago. But imagine with me, you're coming to the end and you know you need to have this many more inches, but you are gonna run out of yarn, like the writing's on the wall. Can you just have some kind of design feature at the end that uses one of your existing colors that you already have as part of the project? I find that whatever colors are in your warp, you get free reign to sprinkle them wherever else you want in the project, even if that wasn't the original intention. Friends, if you are making a scarf, a table runner, something that's just kind of long and narrow, it is no big deal to have some kind of a cool little design feature on one end. Own it. Just say, oh, I meant to do that. Yeah. No, I didn't run out of yarn. No. I just wanted to circle back to the colors that I already had in the project. So that's absolutely something that you can play with. The next question I'll ask is, can you bring in another color, another yarn to work with? Let me show you what that might look like. And so much of this depends on what is the intention of the project. You know how this goes, right? You can have a lot of flexibility depending on what you want the end result to be. And you can even change your mind of what the end result can be. I give you that permission. So look at this guy. So these are the warp yarns going this way. So I knew I already had different colors happening in the warp, but I ran out of this pretty little blue color. It's like, okay, well, now what do I do? Well, in this case, because it's just a bag, I am not worried about it all being the same or all being as intended. So I brought in this kind of like a light chocolatey color for this just to finish out the project. No big deal. It looks great. No problem. Bring in another color. Now, with those kind of 3 questions, the can you make it shorter? Can you use some of your existing colors? Or can you bring in like another yarn or color? Let's talk briefly about how to work that in. First of all, as you saw, you could just do a hard stop and go to whatever else you want to do to finish out your project. That's no problem. But you can also kind of roll it in, weave it in, if you will. Let me show you what that might look like. And because you see it coming, this is where it's helpful to see the cone that is rapidly diminishing. Because you can see it coming, you can make a little plan to kind of work in another color. Let me see if I can kind of share with you what that might look like. Okay, let's look at this guy here. So now in this case I did it intentionally, but the same concept applies. Here I have all of this kind of creamy color, and I wanted to work it down to this kind of orange color. So I just started to kind of alternate them. And then before you know it, I had free reign to just do completely like all of this orange color. So keep in mind, there are ways that you can start to kind of phase one yarn out and phase another one in. There's all kinds of fun design things that you can do when you are secretly trying to compensate for running out of a yarn. No worries, no one's gonna know. Who's gonna know? Unless you tell them, of course, like I usually do. So, friends, in recap, let's just say that running out of yarn is not the end of the world. It is not a big deal. You have options. You have choices. Now, of course, you can always go buy more yarn, but ask yourself, can you change the size? Can you work with your existing yarns? Or can you bring in another yarn? There's a lot of ways to do that. So take a big breath, think it through, get creative, and I say keep on weaving. Now, let me know, what is your best story of when you ran out of yarn? And what did you do? What moves did you make to remedy that when you ran out of yarn? Either when you were measuring the project or when you're actually weaving it here at the loom. I'm very curious. I always love to hear all of your weaving stories. So be sure to put them in the comments for me. And I hope this gave you some things to chew on so that you're like, okay, I'm not panicked. No, I got this. Because I trust you. You've got this. Have a great week, friends. Happy weaving.